have a motion to approve?
I move that we approve the budget, and again, many thanks to Ellen Lorraine and Anne Marie and all the department heads and all the committee heads for bringing this forward, their needs forward.
Great, thank you. Is there a second?
I'll second that.
Thank you, Tim. We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
No, Mayor?
Yes, you want to,
Please.
yes, sure, Rob.
I've got some remarks I'd like to make, and they'll take me several minutes, I'm afraid. I'm concerned by the way the budget for the police department has been handled for three reasons. First, the process for increasing the authorized level of the police department was inappropriate. Second, the request for 2 additional officers was not justified even by the process we did use. Third, more fundamentally, I believe that we misconceived the proper role of the police in Lewis. First, the process was inappropriate. Several months ago, the city authorized the chief to recruit for 2 replacement officers to bring his strength back up to 13, his authorized level, from 11, one of whom is on sick leave. Then, an item appeared on the council's February agenda as the last item on a very long agenda as follows, quote, presentation and possible action on a request to hire 1 to 2 additional police officers, close quote. The council reached this item on February 11th at 10:30 p.m. after meeting for 4 hours. The mayor invited the chief to present his request. The chief spoke for less than 3 minutes. He offered no written analysis or substantiation of the need. After some questions and objections I raised, the mayor and council granted the chief's request for 2 more officers, increasing his authorized staff to 15. The city is now proposing to spend $1,061,200, or 25% of its operating budget for LPD operations, an increase of 9.8% from last fiscal year. The effect on the budget of the 2 additional officers is substantial. Each officer costs about $100,000 a year. Because we didn't get many qualified applicants and were unwilling to wait for certified officers to come onto the market, as they do, we have to hire 2 uncertified officers, and we will pay for both of them to go through the service academy for some 7 months. We will need another vehicle once they do report for duty. These costs are now built into our annual budget. Surely such an increase to our big taxpayer dollars deserves more thought. This agenda item was scheduled as our 6 weeks of budget meetings were about to begin. The city has a finance committee, a police review committee, and a city council budget process. All of these were bypassed. Second, the request was not justified. When the chief spoke for less than 3 minutes to present his request for 2 more officers, he offered no written analysis or substantiation. He claimed deference 4 times to his rank and made 3 assertions. First, he, quote, strives to be staffed with a minimum of 2 on-duty patrol officers per shift, close quote. 2, Lewis has grown. And 3, we have traffic from the ferry, the hospital, and the park. Each of these arguments is weak. As Deputy Mayor Osler established last year in the Police Review Committee, as to scheduling, the department scheduled 1 patrol officer per shift a large percentage of the time, with the lieutenant, chief, or detective available for backup, quite apart from the state police and DRBA patrol officers. There are many municipalities that cannot afford and do not provide the level of staffing the chief requested. Next, as to the argument that Lewis has grown. Lewis has grown in the number of seasonal visitors rather than permanent residents, as Nancy Powell pointed out on the Police Review Committee last year. We are planning to hire seasonal police to deal with the seasonal visitors. As to permanent residents, Lewis will indeed grow, as Lewis Waterfront Preserve, White's Pond Meadow, Dutchman's Harvest, and other developments are completed and fill up. And we can expect the LPD to ask for even more officers then, when this justification will have been forgotten. Traffic from the ferry, the hospital, and the park are not new. The DRBA has a police headquarters at the ferry terminal anyway. Another reason the chief might have offered is that several officers are eligible for retirement, and a couple of them have talked about it. So we want to recruit in anticipation of need. But the request we granted is the authorized level of the Lewis Police Department. So when a retirement comes, there will be another vacancy to fill. Third, police function.
Rob, we can't hear you.
The nature of the proper police function in Lewis. And by the way, Janine, I can send you these remarks. When I was in my mid-30s, I served as a prosecutor in Washington for 5 years, during 4.5 years of which I worked with the police every day. I worked with the DC Metropolitan Police, the Metro Transit Police, the Capitol Police, the Park Police, the Prince George's County Police, the FBI, the Naval Intelligence Service, the MPs, and more. I enjoyed my work immensely, and I have deep respect for police officers. The MPD, the Metropolitan Police, gave me an award for my work, of which I am very proud. But police departments should not be one size fits all. We are a quiet, low crime, elderly resort town. Lewis is not a little DC or a little Wilmington, and its police department should not strive to be a mini Wilmington force. There are many ways in which our Lewis Police Department tries to be just like the big city cops. The request to have 2 patrol officers on the street during every shift, regardless of whether there are senior officers at headquarters, is one example already discussed. There are others. We buy souped up cars with racing brakes, suitable for high-speed pursuits which we don't have. When the need for these vehicles is questioned, the answer has been that the police need to be able to respond to a crime scene quickly. I would hope that the police do not respond to a crime scene faster than a normal car can travel over our streets. Every patrol vehicle has a rifle. Rifles are not for self-defense. They are to kill at a distance. The state police are quite capable of supplying a rifleman for that purpose, as they recently did. I am unaware that an LPD officer has ever used a rifle on a suspect. The chiefs noticed that he would be requesting a new canine as another example. The previous canine was trained to sniff dogs and attack suspects. A couple of years ago, the chief proudly told me that the dog, quote, got his first bite, close quote. So it seems the dog didn't get much practice in Lewis. Quite apart from the chief's earlier promise not to ask for another canine, such a dog is an exorbitant expense. The purchase, training, vehicle refitting, vet bills, and diversion of a patrol officer to training for 2 full shifts a month. A drug-sniffing attack dog may be suitable for a big city, but the request for one illustrates perfectly how we have misconceived the role of the police in Lewis. What is the proper role of the police in Lewis? Year after year, the mayor and council have pressed one chief after the other to get his officers out of their cars with little effect. So our citizens do not know our police officers, and our police officers do not mingle with and learn the problems of our citizens. We have scores of ordinances to enforce with criminal penalties so that only the police could enforce them. And I cannot recall even a warning, let alone a citation, ever being written for any of them, which are intended to promote our quality of life. That kind of work may be below the dignity of a Wilmington police officer, but it should be the bread and butter of a Lewis patrol officer. To summarize, in my opinion, our process to budget for the police department, especially for the 2 additional officers, was inadequate. The justification for them was weak, even according to the current model of policing in Lewis, and the model needs to be re-examined. For those reasons, I feel that I must vote against the fiscal year 2022 budget as now proposed. Having said that, I'd like to express my appreciation for the excellent work of Ellen Lorraine and Anne Marie in leading us through the process, and for the work that the Finance Committee under Andrew and Bonnie has done. Thank you, Mayor.
Thank you, Rob.
Can I respond?
Yes, please, Andrew.
I would just like to respond that if community would like to reach out to me with more specifics why I'm voting for this budget, I'm happy to do that. But when it comes specifically to some of the points that Rob made, I'll agree. I think the process, and I'll take some of the hit for that. It being new, in terms of the process, probably was not what it should be. When it comes to need, we offer the city of Lewis two things, and we've all agreed this as council. When we talk about annexing people in, and that's, we offer people maintenance and that comes through the streets department. We also offer police service. Maintenance department, we've increased their budget by 13% and the police by nearly 10%. I am doing that mostly based on, again, the point that was made around growth. If we're talking about police or the maintenance department, it's important for me to have people in place when the growth actually is in front of us. And that will allow them then to become ingrained in that community so that when these other areas come online, they're familiar already with it. They're not new to the street, so to speak. And that holds true for both of those departments. Secondly, you're basing it on a comment last year, which I'll agree, traditionally Lewis has been a very seasonal town. COVID is a game changer. And it's showing us that people are now seeing Lewis as a place that's going to be more a year-round location for them because they can work remotely. And then with respect to even the increase on the seasonal part, there are 2 hotels being built by Arby's as we speak. Those people are not going to sit around in their hotels. They're going to come to Lewis. And as far as I understand, they're not going to be bringing their own police protection or anything else with them. They're going to require that from the city of Lewis to provide that for them. And like I said, I'm happy to discuss further with anyone who wants to give me a call. My number is 302-841-3755.
Thank you, Andrew. Bonnie?
Well, I don't know that I can say this any better than Andrew just did. But when has that ever stopped me from gabbing on? The growth that is on the books already is significant. We've got Brittingham, we've got both parts of the Showfields, we've got Donovan's, we've got Dutchman's Harvest, we've got whatever they're going to build at the dairy, we've got the assisted living place. We are going to have a lot more people in Lewis, and they're going to be permanent residents. 2 people on duty, it has nothing to do with Wilmington. It has everything to do with the simple concept that it's better to have people have ready backup. It's good for our officers rather than have one person out there on their own. And I think that it is a worthy goal. On the process, I just wanted to remind everyone that Anne Marie sent us an email before this came up, and that anybody who wanted to talk to Chief Spell about his justification was certainly free to do so. The justification that I heard from him was mainly based on vacancies and on planning for existing vacancies. I mean, they're down to what, 10 people now? So existing vacancies, we're running them pretty hard right now. I don't think that vacations are easy to come by in the police department. So we already had vacancies that we are late in filling because when COVID hit, as everybody will recall, we stopped dead. We said, we're not doing any hiring in the police department or anywhere else until we understand where we are. So we have longstanding vacancies. We also have anticipated retirements, which is what we're hiring towards, as opposed to a plus up. I think this is a backfill. As for getting to know the people in Lewis, I mean, I applaud the chief for many of his initiatives, but in particular for one that I think is a big help, and that is assigning an officer to each of the homeowners associations so that there is a point of contact. I think that's a good idea. On getting people, the officers out of their cars, the chief, I mean, I wish that it was more feasible, and I think that it should be done to the maximum extent possible. But the chief also explained the practicality of what is the way the officers function in the 21st century and what's in their cars that they need ready access to. And one final point, Rob made a point that the police officers don't go out and write tickets on all of the numerous possible criminal penalties, which I think carry generally, $25 fines. But police officers are not code enforcement officers. They have a different role. Now, if I think it is an open question for council, for you guys going forward, whether you want to have more code enforcers. But I don't really see that as an appropriate activity for the police officers. So I understand what Rob is saying, and the police officers are very expensive. I, for one, if someone was breaking into my house, would not want a police officer to come. When I called at 25 miles an hour, I would want him or her to come a lot faster than that. And that's always been my back and forth with Rob on the chase cars issues. I don't know, we don't have any chases, but I think I speak for an awful lot of people in Lewis in saying I damn well want those officers to get there in a hurry if I'm in trouble. So those are just a couple of responses. Yeah, the police are expensive. And I will say, if I remember correctly, over the past 2, 3, maybe 4 budget cycles, maybe 3, the police budget has actually been very much in line with the year before. So while we do have an increase in personnel this year, I don't think it's, I think the chief has actually done a pretty good job in keeping that department fiscally responsible. So
Thanks,
that's why I'm going to vote for the budget. I mean, I'm going to vote for the budget for not just the police, but for everything else in it. But just FYI, just my thought.
Thank you, Bonnie.
Sure.
Okay. All right, so I will echo what both Andrew and Bonnie have said, but I will also say that talking with other mayors and city managers throughout Sussex County, it is not easy to recruit officers. There is a very significant shortage of officers that are qualified. And many municipalities are doing this. In fact, we lost 2 officers here that were recruited to other municipalities. So it is difficult to find officers that are already qualified. Yes, it is an expensive process to train them. And you're right, Rob, it does take 7 months. But I do think the anticipation of, first of all, we have an officer staff that is largely senior. And we do know that there are several people that could retire. And some of them have voiced interest in doing so in the near future. So I do think that we're making some appropriate moves in anticipation of that, especially given our census has grown. We're now showing almost over 3,100 full-time residents, according to the latest information, and on which the $1.69 million allocation was based. So we have grown considerably in the last 10 years. So I do think that and what we know is going on our perimeters and within the community suggests to me that we really do need to make sure that our staff, our officers are fully trained and ready to serve when they are needed. So I too, I understand your concerns. I have long advocated that we should keep an eye on the police budget, and this is a big lift, but I do think it is necessary at this time, given the circumstances that we've discussed. So anyway, so we have a motion and a second, and Rob has indicated he's going to vote nay. I would call for the vote. All those in favor?
Aye.
Thank you. Any opposed? Rob, we have your vote. So the budget passes 4-1. Thank you very much. Appreciate all the consideration that was given to this budget. And again, Anne Marie and Ellen Lorraine, thank you very much for all of your efforts to put this together. And I think anyone who attended our various long meetings, some of which lasted almost 4 hours or even longer, this budget got a very thorough analysis before it was approved or before it was brought forth here for approval this evening. So then moving on to new business.
I'm gonna go off camera on this one.
Okay. Or your recusal. I understand your recusal. Thank you, Andrew. So then moving on to new business is a presentation and possible action on a resolution to set a public hearing on an ordinance to amend chapter 197 zoning attachment 4, table of dimensional regulations for non-residential zones in the municipal code of the city of Lewis relating to maximum building height in the CFE zone. This is we need to schedule a public hearing regarding building height in the CFE zone, and we've looked at calendar. Anne Marie has floated some dates. It looks like the best possible date is, yes, Bonnie?
I'm sorry, I just wanted to say one thing. I was concerned about participating in this matter because I live on Savannah Road across the street from where the new middle school building will be. But I checked in with the school district's architect, and he, based on where I am and what they're projecting, I will not see the school. So I feel comfortable participating.
Great.
I just wanted to put that out there.
Thank you for that clarification. I knew you had expressed that concern. Glad you got it cleaned up.
No, I checked on it.
Great, thank you. As you always do, you're very thorough. Thank you very much. So we have, Anne Marie has floated some dates. It looks as though Monday, April the 5th is the best available date for all of us, I believe, that are participating, as well as for Glenn Mendelis. Is that correct, Anne Marie?
Correct.
So we need a motion to set this public hearing on April the 5th.
At what time, Mayor?
6 o'clock.
6 o'clock.
Mhm.
So moved.
Thank you, Rob. Is there a second? Thank you, Bonnie. All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, any opposed? And we have Andrew as abstaining, so, or recusal, excuse me. So if, is there anything else anyone needs to bring or would like to bring forward here this evening? Hearing nothing, how about a motion to adjourn? We do have another committee that will be meeting after we finish, so.
Yeah, a little advertisement for Parks and Rec, right? They'll be up
They
next.
do. You can spend their evening watching Parks and Rec. Okay,
I move that we adjourn.
thank you, Bonnie. Is there a second? Thanks, Rob. All in favor?
Aye.
Great, thank you. Have a great evening.
Thanks again, guys, for a great budget.
Yeah,
And
thank
again,
you.
Helen.
Thank you, Anne Marie.
Thank you.
Lorraine.
Thank you.
Okay, bye-bye.